Are you ready for thunder? It's Uranus in Gemini. I know you've been hearing about it. I know you've been seeing hot takes about it. And let's get into it. And hi, I'm Mel, aka Pocket Mystic, and I'm on a mission to make mysticism more accessible through tarot readings, astrological updates, and guided meditations that fit seamlessly into your schedule. So, I'm going to focus mostly on how Uranus moving into Gemini will affect you personally. I do have a video, one of my first videos, where I talk about it more on a collective level. And I have a tarot spread about how to help ground you during this time because, honey, you're going to need grounding. But I will just give you a brief overview of Uranus, what it does, what it's going to do in Gemini. I'm going to make some predictions, which I didn't feel confident enough to do in the last video about this. And then I'm going to go through rising sign by rising sign, what it means for you, so that you kind of know what to expect over these next 7 years. So Uranus is the planet of innovation, of revolution, of upheaval. In the tarot, it is represented by the Tower card. Now, we know not to be afraid of the Tower card, right? When we see the Tower card, we know, okay, something in my life has been out of alignment with myself, and it's time for that to be corrected, right? We see the Tower card, we've got this round crown and a square tower. They don't fit. They don't belong together. So when the Tower card comes up, we are getting into a higher alignment with ourselves. So no, we're not afraid of the Tower card, right? Yes, okay, there's some lightning, it's chaotic, people are falling, but we know that it's ultimately for our good. So Uranus literally rotates on its side. It's like, I'm flipping things on the head. I'm not rotating the way the rest of you are. And it also has rings, and it is named after Uranus, the father of Saturn. So I also like to think about what Uranus is coming to do, this Tower card, this upheaval, hey, this is not a good fit. This is not good alignment. It's coming to correct that. And then I like to think that through the support of Saturn, which is really about building things that last, it's helping us to build something that is in higher alignment with ourselves. So that's how I like to think about this time, right? Now, why did I say you're gonna need grounding? Uranus also represents our nervous systems. So it has been in earthy rooted Taurus, where it doesn't love life, right? Because it kind of wants to be able to disrupt and to move fast. And Taurus is like, I don't think so, honey. We like slow, we like steady. So Uranus, the sign of our nervous system, has been in this deeply rooted earth sign of Taurus, and now it's moving into Gemini, which is like its own lightning bolt. But I don't think this is necessarily bad for our nervous systems. I do think whatever is going on in the sky, right? Grounding practices are always really helpful. But our nervous systems are meant to be expansive. They're meant to be able to react to a great many amount of things and then come back to baseline. And it's almost like I'm getting the sense that as Uranus was in Taurus, we also felt a little contracted. We felt a little stuck in our nervous systems. I think that's why you're seeing so much about nervous system regulation starting to come up. And I think, Uranus being unleashed in a lot of ways, and the sign of Gemini is going to kind of give us this opportunity to really expand our nervous systems, to really allow them to be able to handle a lot that's going on. So I think that's exciting. I have felt stuck myself. I don't know about you, but I do think it's always good to ground, right? Because we're moving into this air sign. So, one easy way is just do a quick journal every day, or literally go stand in your grass in your bare feet, like touching grass. They were right? Just some simple things to help ground. You can use a lot of somatic techniques. So a few quick notes on the collective. None of the astrology happens in silos, right? So we do have Pluto in Aquarius, and we know that when Pluto is in Aquarius, it is meant to disrupt what is not working for the collective, to bring alignment for the collective. So we have that happening. And then we also have Neptune, which is the planet of dreams, illusion, disillusion, and it was in Pisces. And when it was in Pisces, when it started in Pisces, was really the rise of social media, which makes sense, right? We almost have this version of ourselves that lives online that's not real, that's not material. And that was happening during Neptune and Pisces, the rise of Instagram as we know it, the rise of TikTok. And it's now moved into Aries, which is all about the self, all about agency. And now we have Uranus, which rules modern technology, which rules upheaval, which is coming into Gemini, which is all about communication, about how we talk to each other, about how we think, right? It's ruled by Mercury. And so we have Uranus coming in to disrupt the kind of conversations that we're having, who we're hearing from, how we're collectively thinking. And I think you're really going to see either the death of the algorithm or the death of social media as we know it, or it's just going to significantly disrupt the algorithm and who we hear from. Prediction 1. Prediction 2. This is going to be US centric, I'm sorry, but I do think we're going to see a lot of actual change, upheaval, correction in America early on Uranus going into Gemini. I think for sure by July, I think it will be benefic. It will be beneficial. That's my other prediction. Okay. The other thing I want to say before I get into the rising signs and what Uranus is going to be disrupting in your own personal life, I think it's really helpful to look at what house Uranus has just left of yours. And so as I'm going through the rising signs, whenever I get to your house, just know the one before it is what it just left, okay? So, for example, Uranus was in Taurus, which is in my 11th house of community, of connection, and I also have my sun conjunct Jupiter there and Mercury there. So it was a big time of upheaval, both around how I think about myself, how I expand myself, how I communicate, and around my community. And I mean, it's true. It's true. So this started in 2019, right? In 2018, I moved to New York from Colorado. I moved to New York City. I made this amazing community of people who are like so near and dear to me. This amazing community of artists, creators, musicians that were just so inspiring to me. And then I moved again. I moved to Switzerland. Now my community is mostly the trees in my neighborhood and the cats that come to visit. But it really did disrupt where I am in the world in terms of my community, the community that I have around me. And also, yes, it really expanded how I think about myself, how I communicate. I literally have a book being published in May, which I'll talk more about later. So if you can look and see, okay, where was this before and what did it disrupt there? And then we're going to find gratitude for it, because that's going to really help us to just be open to receive the goodness of what's coming. And even if your gratitude is like, I am glad you are leaving. Thank you for your visit. Goodbye. That's fine. It's just about the act of gratitude. The other thing I want to say quickly is that for a lot of us, depending on when you were born, you might have Chiron in Gemini, or maybe you had Chiron in Taurus and it's leaving. So when Uranus is coming into interaction with where you have your Chiron, Chiron is called the wounded healer. I don't like to think about him like that, but it is representative of this wound that you have, that you carry with you, that carries through your life. And I like to think when Uranus is coming into interaction with that, it's giving us the chance to rewrite our story about that wound. So if you have Chiron and Gemini, you likely have a wound related to how your communication impacts the way you're perceived, the way you're loved, the way you're valued. So for example, for me, I have my Chiron and Gemini, and I have so many things around this, right? I feel like I'm going to be misunderstood a lot of the time. I feel misunderstood a lot of the time. You maybe can't tell in this video, but I'm pretty soft-spoken and people are constantly asking me to speak up and it drives me nuts. which I obviously have to get over because my mother is losing her hearing and I gotta speak up, okay? And also kind of just this fear around when we speak up, when we say what we want or what we need, it leads to disconnection. It leads to a severance of relationships, right? So there's this fear of like, when I say what I want and what I need, I'm not loved. I'm left. I'm abandoned. Whatever, however that sort of manifests for you. And Uranus is coming to disrupt that story. So when I speak up and I'm left, that means that person wasn't in alignment with me. That means it's making space for someone else to come in who is in my alignment, right? So we're going to be disrupting that story, but it might feel a little painful. And of course, it depends on where Gemini, which house you have Gemini in, where you might feel this impact the most. So if you want to know, you can leave your what house Gemini is in or your rising sign. So now I'm going to get into what this means for you at an individual level based on your rising sign. I'm going to go pretty quickly through these, just very high level. I won't touch on placements, like if you have your sun there, you have your Mercury there, but if you want to leave that information below, I can give you a little bit more information about how this will impact you. I will have the timestamps so you can find yours or your friends or whoever you want to check on. So we're going to go in zodiacal order. We'll go first with Aries Rising all the way through to Pisces Rising. So if you're an Aries Rising, that means that Uranus has been in your second house of assets, resources, self-worth, like literal material assets. And so that means it's probably been disrupting how much you own, maybe the way you're making money, your resources, or even just how you're thinking about that and what it means to you and your sense of self-worth. And now it's going to be moving into your third house, which is the house of communication, of siblings, extended family, kind of like who you are outside of your home and how you connect outside of your home. So you're going to be thinking differently about who you want to be connected with, how you want to communicate who you are in the world, like how you kind of want to engage outside of your home and sort of like standing up for that. And then if you are a Taurus rising, how are you doing? This was in your first house, which is your house of self, your house of appearance, your house of your life force, So you've been getting disrupted in like how you think about yourself and how you think about how you navigate the world. People say, your rising sign becomes less important as you get older. That's not true. It's just simply not true. And your first house, your rising sign is how you navigate through the world. And so that's been being disrupted. And I'm sure that's felt chaotic, right? But now it's moving into your second house. This is your house of assets, of material resources, or even non-material resources, how you are resourced and your sense of self-worth. So this could mean that you're going to think You're going to think differently about how you want to build your assets, how you want to build your resources around you, how you resource yourself, maybe like more self-care practices, or maybe you want to save more, whatever it looks like to resource yourself and your sense of self-worth. So, you've gone through all this change about your sense of self and how you navigate the world. And now it's kind of looking at, look what I know about myself and how do I want to value myself, and my worth. If you are a Gemini rising, hi. Hello, are you scared? Don't be scared, right? Uranus has been in your 12th house, which some people consider a scary house. I, of course, don't. I think it's a beautiful house, but it is a difficult house, right? Because it's about, what is hidden life, secrets, your shadow self. So you've really probably been facing your shadow self, like your own things that you don't like to admit to yourself, or things that you've kind of always known in the background, but you've been forced to deal with, or maybe you've been connecting more deeply to like your inner knowing, your inner life. Maybe you've had a lot of sorrow, a lot of loss during this time, and now it's moving into your first house of self. So of your appearance, of your life force, right? So you're really going to be going through this period of rethinking, how do you see yourself? How do you want to navigate the world? Who do you want to be in it? And this period that you've just been through is setting you up perfectly to do that, because you've been going into the shadow, right? And you're like, how do I want to integrate some of that into who I am and how I navigate the world? If you are a Cancer rising, hi, hello, me too. How are you doing? This, as I said, has been in our 11th house of community, of friends, of good fortune. So you've probably felt disrupted in terms of your communities, maybe, who you're connecting with, who you're no longer connecting with. Maybe you've literally moved and it's your physical community. Maybe you've changed friends, and now it's moving into our 12th house, which is the house of secrets, of hidden life, of our shadow. So it's really going to be a time of a lot of deep internal work. And that's where I like to say, Uranus has set us up perfectly for this, because we've rearranged our communities to be more in alignment. So when we're doing this deep inner work, this shadow work, this like going into our own inner knowing, we have the right people around us to support us during that time. I do personally, I am preparing for a lot of solo time. But I think it's going to be this really rich time. The 12th house can be quite difficult, but I think there's so much richness there. So I'm excited for us. If you are a Leo rising, this has been in your 10th house of career and public roles. So if you don't have a job, this could be like volunteer work you do, or how you're seen, or maybe your family life. And if you have a career, maybe you've completely pivoted careers, or you've rethought about your career, or you've just felt a lot of upheaval there. And now it's moving into your sign of community, of connection, of friends, of good fortune. So maybe you're going to literally change your community around you by moving. Maybe you're going to be connecting to a new community that feels more aligned. Maybe you're going to be relooking at your friendships, which ones are giving to you, which ones are not. I just went through this. I found it revolutionary, but also amazing. So I wish the same for you. If you are a Virgo rising, this has been in your 9th house, which is travel, education, religion, philosophy, astrology, publishing. So, maybe you wrote a book, or maybe you thought about publishing, or maybe you've gone to higher education, or maybe you traveled a lot, or maybe you didn't travel at all, or maybe you changed the way you thought about the world. A lot of that sort of how more broadly do I think about the world, and how do I connect to it and my place in it? And now you're moving into Uranus, going into your 10th house of career and public roles. So maybe you're going to rethink your career. Maybe you're going to make a total career pivot shift. Maybe if you don't work, it could just be, how do you volunteer in the world, or how are you seen in the world, or your home life will be getting disrupted here. But again, for your higher alignment, if you are a Libra rising, this has been in your 8th house, which is about shared resources, right? It's also about mental health. So you've probably really been, thinking and feeling disrupted in terms of how are you resourced around other people in terms of the way that you share resources. And this doesn't just have to be partnerships. It could also be the government, what's happening with your tax returns, or maybe just specifically in your mental health. And now it's moving into your 9th house of travel, of publishing, of philosophy, of education. So maybe you're going to go back and get a degree. Maybe you're going to travel a lot. Maybe you're not going to travel at all. Maybe you're going to totally rethink your worldview. This is really about how do you connect with and see the world more broadly, and how do you share that out in the world that's going to be disrupted here. Innovated for our higher good, right? If you are a Scorpio rising, Uranus has been in your 7th house, which is the house of committed partnerships. So you've probably had some major changes, not just maybe in your romantic life, but this is also who you have contracts with, your work life, who you're connected to, who you're bound to. And you've probably seen some major changes there, some adjustments to who you're committing to, or maybe just how you're committing, like setting boundaries. This doesn't work for me. Yes, I'm still connected to this person, but I'm rethinking that. And it's going to be moving into your 8th house of other people's resources. So hopefully you set up those boundaries and you're prepared for how you're going to engage with this disruption. Now, other people's resources doesn't just mean partnerships, like how do we share money in my partnership. It can also be like government taxes or like programs, so like changes there. And it's also mental health, so just be prepared for that. But you're set up because you have these aligned, committed partnerships that you made when Uranus was in your 7th house. If you are a Sagittarius rising, hi, hello. I have so many Sagittarius rising in my life. I love you guys so much. Now, Uranus has been in your 6th house of like your daily habits, of health, of pets, of work. And so, you know, maybe you got a pet. I hope you did. I want a pet. Maybe you've like really thought about what are your daily habits? How are they supporting you or not? And helped set up habits that are more supportive to you. And now you're going to be transitioning into Uranus being in your 7th house of committed partnerships. So expect to be looking at those people you are committed to, whether it is, you know, romantically or maybe work-wise, like that you have contracts with, because that's going to be changing in a way to make you more aligned to yourself, right? So that could be, you know, severing ties, or it could just be, okay, it's time for me to really put in strong boundaries in place that protect me here. If you are a Capricorn rising, then Uranus has been in your 5th house, which is a house of like pleasure and romance and creativity and maybe children. And I bet this has been like an exciting time. You're like, wait, why are some people having a hard time here? Because it's really been helping you to connect more deeply to what brings you life. Like, what makes you feel empowered? What makes you feel joy? What makes you feel pleasure? And like, you know, if you've been afraid of the things that bring you pleasure, it's probably helped you get into them without that fear. And now you're going to be moving into Uranus being in your 6th house, which is your house of like daily habits, of rituals, of health, of pets. Maybe you're going to get a pet. I hope you do. I want a pet. But you're really going to be looking at, you know, what rituals, what daily practices do I have that are not serving me? And how do I want to change those so that I am better resourced for my life, for what I need, for what sets me up the best to be my best self? If you are Aquarius rising, this has been in your 4th house, which is the house of the home. It's the house of the foundation. It's the house of caregivers. It's the house of parents. And it's probably meant that your idea of home, your idea of foundations, you've really been re-looking at that. How do you connect with your parents? How do you think about that? How do you connect with your sense of home has been disrupted, again, to bring you to more alignment so you feel more at home. And now it's going to be moving into your 5th house of pleasure, of creative energy, of romance, maybe children, maybe you're going to have some kids, I don't know. Or maybe you're just going to like get deeper in your pleasure practices. You're going to feel more free to engage with like what brings you to life. Maybe you're going to start a new creative hobby. Maybe you're going to start a new romance, a spicy one. I don't know. I'm excited for you. This is going to be a really fun time. If you are a Pisces rising, this means Uranus has been in your 3rd house of communication, of siblings, of extended family, kind of like how do you connect outside of the home? How do you think? So that's been getting disrupted. You've probably like been rethinking, like, how do I want to connect outside of the world? Like, where do I want, what circle around me do I want to be the close inner circle, and where do I want to create distance? And now you're going into Uranus being in your 4th house of home, of foundations, of parents, of caregivers. So you're really going to be rethinking, what is my sense of home? How is my home set up? Where is my home? Do I like that? Do I not like it? Do I want a new home? Do I want to live somewhere differently? How do I want to connect to my parents? Is that relationship serving me? Do I want to change it? So really rethinking your foundations and like, where are you rooting yourself? So I know I went through this very quickly. I probably talked too fast. But again, if you want to know more about you personally, please feel free to leave your rising sign and any placements that you have there, and I will respond with what to expect during this time. I'm really excited. I hope you guys are really excited. I think this is going to be really good. And I'm really excited for those of us who have our Chiron in Gemini to see how we get to rewrite those stories around our wounds. Okay, I'll see you guys back here for a May astrological and tarot update.